it's vulnerable too, because I think we all have this, you're not that good or you're not good enough, or like it's all the voices in your head for most of us, like the way we talk to ourselves. I think we should be more kind when we
Yeah.
talk to ourselves.
There are healers on this planet with the power to soften the suffering of mankind, yet they have remained in the recesses of the world, abused, discarded, and labeled as trash. This is The Touch of a Mustang. I am your host, Shalise Clough, and I'm here to tell the story of wild horses, Mustangs, and the humans who are discovering and sharing their gifts while working to protect their well-being and preserve their spirit, so this divine power won't be lost. Join us on this quest with the Wild Mustang. Growing up as a whitewater kayaker, Francisco's lifelong love of photography grew to a professional level while documenting his teammates during training and competitions. After suffering an unfortunate accident from dropping down a 60-foot waterfall, Francisco shifted his focus from kayaking to photography. Unwilling to give up the world of sports completely, he has built a career as a professional sports photographer, traveling around the world to work with brands like Nike, Monster Energy, Lululemon, and Gatorade. It's not just the world of sports that has informed Francisco's photography practice. He has a bachelor's degree in industrial design and is deeply influenced by his love of the visual arts. With his unique artistic journey, coupled with a deep love for horses and Western scenes, Francisco decided to go back to his early painting days to create equine art. This new practice feeds his deep passion for the equine world while being able to continue with his photography career. You will find him often photographing the Alberta wild horses located an hour away from his home. Born and raised in Mexico City, you'll find Francisco in his new home, Cochrane, Canada. He feels connected to the Western vibe of the city and enjoys collaborating on projects and branching out on adventures whenever possible. He always enjoys returning to his first home, where you can spot him every now and then on the clear blue waters of Mexico's south coast, enjoying a good surfing session with friends. Francisco, thank you for coming on the podcast and welcome to it.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to be here. Excited.
I'm excited also. This is a little bit different podcast because you come to horses from a different angle. Do you want to tell us about your background and what led you to have a life that involves horses?
Yeah, for sure. So basically, I grew up in Mexico City. So I'm born and raised in Mexico City, one of the biggest cities in the world. So
Yeah.
you can imagine it's pretty packed, right? We don't have much space. So when I grew up there, I don't know, like since a young age, I was obsessed with horses. Like you can ask my parents, I was buying all the little horse toys, the plastic ones that you can find in any store. I would ask my parents to take me to see horses. I wanted to take horse riding classes. So I remember my mom taking me one day to a place that they would give classes of horses, horseback riding. And she was like, "You're too young." I think I was like 7. She's like, "You're walking under the horses. Like it's so dangerous." She like panicked. She's like, "No, we're not letting you do it right now."
Yeah.
So yeah, like I was like hooked with horses. I don't know why, but after that, growing in the city is pretty difficult to either own a horse or have a horse. It's pretty expensive too if you actually want one. So we didn't have the means for that.
Yeah.
And so then, I mean, eventually you grow up. I was a teenager. I started doing other things like whitewater kayaking. I was a whitewater kayaker for 14 years, but still, like horses were around my life every now and then. I remember my friend, he had a ranch in Veracruz. It's like 4 hours away from Mexico City. So I would be excited just to go to the ranch to see the horses, right? Not even to go kayaking. It was more of like, I want to see your horses. And then eventually I moved to Canada. And I feel like once I moved to Canada and I wanted to because when I was young, I was drawing all the time as well. Like I was drawing animals, horses, anything you can imagine. So then once I went to Canada, I started drawings in 2020 when COVID hit. Everything stopped, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, I had a lot of time in my hands. So I was like, okay, what do I like to do? Meanwhile, everything is going crazy. So I started drawing a lot more. Like I drew all my life, but like a little bit more on the professional side.
Mm-hmm.
And then my main inspiration is horses since the beginning. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna still go and go ahead and start this. That passion grew more than I even thought it was gonna. I liked it even more than I thought it would. And it's just funny how things happen. I started doing that. I started connecting even more with people that own horses around. When I went to Canada, I was in Quebec first. I was there for a while, and I started connecting with more people with horses. I met a few that had some facilities to rescue, old horses that people don't want them anymore. And
Right.
then I moved to Calgary, and that's like the one of the best places for me. It's kind of like Texas, for example. It's like a lot of cattle ranches, people with like that own horses, and
Mm-hmm.
and we have the wild horses here too, the Alberta Wildies.
Yeah.
So I mean, I ended like you start in one of the biggest cities in the world, and then you end up in next to wild horses here in Canada that I
Yeah.
didn't even know we had wild horses in Canada. So I
Mm-hmm.
mean, long story short, that's more or less how uh, horses have been in my life, and yeah, pretty different from other people. Like I didn't grow up with horses. I don't own horses either, but I feel like my drawings and the art that I do, it comes from that kind of frustration that never was able to grow and have a horse or anything. So it's kind of like my inspiration. I live through my art,
Yeah.
kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I can relate to a lot of that. I remember when I was little, just like seeing horses on the street or something. We owned
Yeah.
horses, but I would
Okay.
still just get so excited to just be able to see a horse. So I understand that feeling of let's
Yeah,
just go to the
I'm
ranch and look at your
driving.
horses.
Yeah, exactly. I'm driving. And I'm like, oh look, there's one horse here, and I will make my parents stop just to take pictures of horses. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's yeah, and I'm like, I want to keep that passion alive, right? Like even you don't have to grow and with horses since a young age. You can start at any time.
Yeah. And I really love that horses have influenced your life, even though you maybe don't have them in your everyday life, that they've still been such a big part of your life is really neat to see.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Like even just like the visual aspect, because when I was in Mexico City, I studied industrial design,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like related to arts and all that, and it's just horses for me is just so nice to look at. Like they're such an aesthetic creature. Like I love it, right? Like when you see them galloping, or even just grazing on a field, like it's just so nice to see. And I grew up as a photographer after I finished my whitewater career as a kayaker. I started taking photographs first of
Mm-hmm.
kayaking. I did a lot of like sports photography,
Yeah.
and but every time I could, I was just trying to take pictures of horses as much as I could, and then that turned into more of an obsession. And then I left sports photography, and I just kept on taking photos of horses.
Yeah, I think you capture the essence of horses so well in your art. That's one thing that I really love. There were just a couple
Thank you.
pictures that I definitely fell in love with. So I want
Yeah,
to,
yeah, I try.
yeah, I want to find a way to get some digital copies so I can
Yeah,
blow
no
them up.
problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what led you to move from Mexico City up to Canada?
So in the beginning, I same kind of like with horses at a young age. Like when I was in Mexico, I always wanted to just have that. I wanted to work outside of Mexico City, kind of like a challenge. I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to work abroad, and
Yeah.
I always tried when I was working as a teenager too. I worked for a little bit with Quicksilver, the brand. I was a
Oh, okay.
graphic designer for them,
Yeah. Oh,
and
cool.
I tried to do a transfer to go to Australia to work for a little bit. And I was always trying to get more experience outside Mexico. And then I finally got a job in Canada. It was in Quebec for editing pictures, so it met exactly what I did. So I was there for 4 years. So that's the main reason I ended up in Canada, mostly for work, and also like thinking in the future. I always talk to my friends, is like it's sad to say, but also thinking in the future about family and having kids, is just the security in Mexico is not that great, right? Like the
Yeah.
safety there, it's sad to say because it's an amazing country, it's amazing people,
Yeah,
amazing food, but
it is, and so
yeah,
beautiful.
it's just just getting worse and worse every year. So
Mm.
it was like, two things. Those were the main reasons. And so yeah, like I ended up in Quebec first, the province of Quebec, and then eventually we moved out west because that's I've always wanted to move out west
Mm-hmm.
with the
That's
mountain
neat.
backdrops. Like I knew there
Mm.
was more of like a wild horse, culture, and not just wild horse, like horses in general. In
Mm-hmm.
Alberta, it's way big.
So tell me a little bit about your experience with the wild horses up there in Canada and kind of the situation with them. I don't really know much about the wild
Yeah,
horses up there.
I know it's they're called the Alberta Wildies.
Mm-hmm.
So it's we actually have wild horses here in Alberta, and it's funny because like I think the first week we got to Calgary, I connected with a guy that is called Daryl. He manages the Help Alberta Wildies Society.
Okay.
So it's a non-profit, and they try to like protect the wildies here because
Mm-hmm.
it's a difference from the U.S. They're not protected. I think you can still here in Canada sell them to slaughter,
Yeah.
and they pretty much still do that. They send them basically to Mexico, and
Mm.
for meat. So I met him in like the first week I was in Calgary, and he told me, he's like, you know what, like I almost never answer any emails
Mm.
because I have a lot of emails like this. Yeah, I sent
Yeah.
him one saying like, "Hey, I'm an artist. I'm a photographer. I would love to go and see the Alberta Wildies. Like, I'm a big fan." And he's like, "I don't know why the way you wrote the email. Like, I could see the passion." I sent him obviously some pictures,
Nice.
so he would know I wasn't like lying or anything.
Yeah.
And
You're
so he's
serious
like,
about this.
yeah, exactly. So I could tell he has like I think 500K following on Facebook.
Mm.
He should be a very interesting person to put on your podcast. I feel like if you
Yeah,
ever
that
want
would be a
to
good
talk with
one.
him, that would be a
Yeah.
very good one. So, anyways, I met him and he took me to see the Alberta Wildies. It's like from where I live, it's around 2 hours away. It's in Sundre, the town Sundre. So that's where we have like the biggest concentrations of Alberta Wildies
Mm-hmm.
in Canada. So he took me, and it was one of my best days so far. Still is. He took me on
Mm.
his ATV. He has like 30 something cameras that he puts all around a certain area that he covers just to make sure the wildies are there and protected. And
Mm.
so we went to check all the cameras and everything that he sets up there. We took pictures. Very nice guy, super nice guy, and he's been doing this for years. And he's the only one right now with some people that help him just to
Wow.
stop the slaughter, stop the roundups. It's a
Mm-hmm.
big thing. It's similar to the U.S. It's like a big fight against like the ranchers, and they say the mustangs are invasive and they don't leave grass for the cattle, which is not true. But he can talk a lot about that. He has even proof of, they say like the horses kick the cattle away. They don't eat well. And then you have
Yeah.
the cameras of this guy showing cows and horses eating grass
You're just
together
eating
with no
together.
problem.
Yeah.
They say they kick the wild species like deer or elk. They say the horses, and that's not true. We have videos there showing bands of horses with deer, with elk, with moose
Mm.
all around. So he's trying to demystify all this. Yeah, to be honest, is like kind of lies and
Yeah.
misinformation that spread like wildfire, and yeah, then the only ones who suffer are the Mustangs, the Alberta whites, and in the U.S. same thing.
Yeah. It is such a complicated issue, but I agree that it's really hard to like know what's going on and
Yeah,
who's on the up and up because yeah, there's lots of different angles and sides to it and a lot of
exactly.
politics, I think, and money involved
Yeah,
in the US. So
yeah, and I see both sides. Like I'm not like on one side specifically. It's just I understand what's happening, but I just feel there could be better ways, right, to
yeah.
just manage that kind of thing. So I mean, anyways, this guy is awesome. He tries to help as much as he can with the
Yeah.
situation here in Canada. Yeah,
Well, and yeah, thank goodness that there are people out there who are
yeah,
documenting it and bringing it into the light to
Same,
so that we
same.
can see what the situation is. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah, exactly.
yeah, I think a lot of times we kind of put human standards on animals, that like the
Yeah,
horses are driving the other animals away. And the
yeah.
animal kingdom is quite a bit different
Is Yeah, we
than the
always try to
domestic world.
humanize animals because we see just through our eyes, right?
Yeah.
But it's, yeah, exactly. It's very different. It's like they say, people don't have a Mustang problem. The Mustangs have a people's problem, kind of
Yeah.
thing. It's like they are the misunderstood.
Yeah. Unfortunately, way too often. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, what was that like when you were out there? Were you able to see them in the
Oh
wild?
yeah,
And
yeah,
how was
yeah.
that experience?
It's, oh my god, like I told you, it's one of my best days, and it is gonna be for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was like, you know what, like we drive, and sometimes I do this and I don't see one Alberta wildly, and sometimes
Oh,
we see
really?
100. Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
he's like, I'm taking you. Apparently, you're a nice guy.
Yeah.
So we'll see. And then,
See if you
yeah,
get
like
lucky or not.
exactly. Thank the Lord, we got lucky. Like the first 20 minutes in, we saw a band of horses grazing, and we kept on going. I think at the end of the day, we saw like 50, more or less,
Mm.
in around 2 hours. And we would stop. He would stop on the ATV. I would walk with my telephoto, like super happy. He will have the drone up because he does sometimes videos for the page that he has, just to
Oh, yeah.
show because that's the important thing, is just to show. A lot of people just don't see what's up. So it's better to have videos and photos, just to make people either feel something, relate to the animal, so
Yeah. No,
we're
that
doing
does make a
that.
huge difference. Yeah.
Yeah, no, no, definitely. So yeah, we were taking pictures, videos for like the entire day. I think like 4 or 5 hours, and then
Mm.
yeah, like one of the happiest days of my life. And then yeah, drove back. He's like, you know what, like I like you. If you want to come back, like I'll take you again. Like,
Nice.
yeah. I was like, thank God, I passed the test.
Yeah. You made it through.
I know. Because even me, like I've always had like a hesitation, because I'm from Mexico. I've been 7 years in Canada already, but I'm always like, what are they thinking? This
Yeah.
guy, he's not even from Alberta. Like, so who are you, kind of thing. So I'm
Yeah.
always try to be humble, and like I
Yeah.
don't mean anything bad.
Yeah. I'm a good person. I love horses.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Yeah.
it.
And
Yeah.
so have you been able to go back and see them
Oh yeah.
additional times? Yeah.
Yes, yes. Like I went with him for 3 or 4 more times, and then once I got to know the area, I go with my girlfriend.
Oh, nice.
And I love to go just to see them, and also I use a lot of my pictures as reference for my art.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a two double win for me. Like it's perfect. So we try to go often. It's 2 hours away from where we live, but I mean, like I think there's another area I haven't been that it's like 40 minutes, and there's still wild horses. So I mean, having wild horses at 40 minutes away from your house, for
Yeah,
me, it's
that's
like a dream come true.
yeah, that's
I don't.
incredible.
I know. I don't need to have a horse in the stable on an acreage. I have them 40 minutes away.
Are there any
Yeah.
particular instances you especially remember or horses that really stood out to you or stand out to you now?
Yeah. So one, it's called White Spirit. Is one of the most popular wildies here in Alberta. Pure white horse, and he's one of the oldest here in Alberta. Pretty famous. So I remember the first time he took me, this guy Daryl. We saw White Spirit, and sometimes he told me, he's like,
Mm,
there's been years that they just go graze some other areas, and they don't
yeah.
show up for 1-2 years, and they come back.
Mm,
So I mean, I was like, yeah, this is a lucky day. So I remember that pretty clearly, White Spirit. And then like it's one of my, when I came to Calgary, it was the first time I was like pretty close to wild horses. Like I've been around horses, but wild ones not that
yeah.
much. So another instance, I was taking pictures, and I think I got too close for the stallion's liking,
Mm-hmm.
and he charged at me, and I just came out running out of the bush
Yeah.
like as fast as I can, because like they're beautiful, but they're strong
Yeah.
animals, like
Yeah.
very powerful animals. So I'm just running from out of the forest, and my girlfriend was waiting on the car, and I just hear, didn't even look at the car, but I heard my girlfriend just pushing on the gas. I could hear the engine just like trying to
Yeah.
rescue me. So yeah, it was pretty scary, but I made it with no injury or anything.
Yeah,
But
that's good.
yeah, like a stallion, like a full on. And here the Alberta Wildies are pretty big, like bigger than
Yeah,
the Mustangs in the U.S.
really.
Yeah, they have way thicker necks. They have like a little bit of percheron in them, kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
like pretty big.
Some draft horse.
Yeah, some draft, and they have to withstand like harsh winters. Like we go minus 40, minus 45
Yeah.
sometimes. So and they, I mean, we have grizzly bears, black bears, cougars. So yeah, like they've evolved because it's not. The thing is like the horses here are not just like some horses that escaped from ranches. Like this guy has done DNA tests, and there's DNA that come from like ancient, like even some horses from Russia that back in the day
Mm.
walked all the way down to when like all the continents were together, like
Mm-hmm.
they came down all the way to North America. So they've evolved here for this kind of predators and winters. It's a massive horse running at you, charging, just trying
Yeah.
to save your life. So
Yeah, you need to
that's
make
another
sure
one.
they know you're not threatening the herd, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. And then you live and you learn. So now I'm
Yeah.
a little bit more. I was just excited, so I was getting not that close, but just I think too close for him, especially when they have the falls.
Mm,
So yeah, those are the two unique situations I remember
yeah.
having.
That's not an experience everybody has.
No,
Getting
no,
chased
no,
by a
no.
wild stallion.
Yeah, yeah, that's crazy. I mean, it was brief, 5 seconds, but that's enough. That's
Yeah, probably
all I
felt a
need.
lot longer.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So what is the territory like that they live in up there? And are they mostly in just Alberta or are they in other areas of Canada as well?
Yeah, mostly it's Alberta. It's
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have annual like a perennial, so it's just a pine forest,
Okay.
um, basically, and some open fields, but not that much. The ones where the Alberta Wildlies are like the biggest concentration that we have is where they have like the cut blocks. So it's like a forestry that they just grow trees for lumber, and then
Mm-hmm.
after 10 years they cut them, and then they leave these massive extensions of cut trees, and
Mm-hmm.
that's where like the wild horses end up grazing more.
Okay.
And
Mm-hmm.
then during winter they go into a little bit more into the forest. But yeah, it's basically we're in the Canadian Rockies, so
Pretty
it's
rugged.
just yeah, pretty rugged, not desert, kind of like in the US,
Right. A
super
lot of the
dry,
Mustangs in the
very
US are in
yeah,
more desert or just
exactly.
open, barren land.
Yeah, here
Mm-hmm.
is like forest, but it's funny because when you talk about forest, you might think it's a little bit more humid and stuff, but here in Alberta is super dry too. Like, so it's
Mm.
very dry, very harsh. You see green, but it's just pine trees that they can't eat, right? And they just
Yeah.
try to forage anything that they can, like the little grass that there is here. So that's why also there's this big fight between cattle that need to graze during the summer with the wild horses at the same time. But yeah, it's pretty cold winters, very dry, not an easy place to live, and they say we have too much to handle. This guy Daryl he's flown around every year to take the numbers and
Mm-hmm.
see if the population is growing or going down, and it's actually going down slowly. But then
Hmm.
the government here says it's going up, so it's a fight there too.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not an easy place to live for the horses. But they
No,
manage.
it
They're
doesn't sound like
incredible
it.
creatures.
Yeah. And so that's really interesting. He has found that these are horses that were there anciently,
Yeah,
for as long as time as we know it or
yeah,
whatnot. Cuz I know that's always a big like issue of controversy in the
yes,
US. Like were they really
yes,
here first? And I think it's hard for us to know with complete certainty. But he was able to discover all that just through DNA.
yeah. So usually horses, they rub in trees to scratch and all that, and they leave all these pieces of hair. So he
Mhm.
collects them and sent it to a biologist in Texas, I believe,
Mhm.
and they did the test, and yeah, they obviously like they have some DNA from like
Right.
domestic horses and stuff. But there was a lot of DNA that they found Spanish horse in them as well, and even more like ancient species of horses. Like if they trace the DNA, so yeah, like it's not just some feral horses that were left behind a few years and
Yeah.
now they're there, right? Like those horses will not survive one winter here,
Yeah.
like that. Like it wouldn't happen like that. So it's the same situation in the U.S. Like, I remember I read a book. I don't remember exact the title, but I'll send it to you in a link. It's pretty
Yeah.
interesting. This guy did a whole story of the Mustangs in the U.S.
Yeah.
talking about like if it's actually an invasive or they were first here or we were here, and
Yeah.
apparently same with fossils and some DNA tests that they did, they found out it's a tricky word like native, right? If it's native or
Yeah.
not, because horses actually evolved over millions of years
Right.
in that continent. Then they went
Yeah.
extinct and reintroduced by the Spanish again.
Yeah.
So it's like who was first, and if they go away, then and they come back, then we call them invasive, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a tricky situation,
Yeah. And I
but
think
there's
that's
some
an
evidence.
interesting discussion too, because even if they are non-native, it leads to the discussion, well, how does that make their
What?
lives not worth
Yeah,
protection?
same.
Or does that just mean that we can do whatever we want with it because it wasn't there first? So I think it's interesting. It's such a area of controversy, but also, who do we want to be as humanity, regardless of
Exactly.
whether they're invasive or they've been there anciently. But
I
it's definitely
know.
a conversation that's being had
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah, and
So
then there's some conflict of interest too, and it's yeah, it starts getting too tangled, and yeah,
yeah, it is
I
pretty
know.
tricky. Sadly, yeah, too many forces with money invested in it more
Exactly.
than just the welfare of even the land. I would say welfare of the
Yeah,
land, the animals. I do think a lot of times there's ulterior motives that are
yeah, 100%.
directing
We see
a
it
lot of the
here firsthand.
conversation and the action that's being taken. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. The conversations here actually was yesterday. They had one with the government and some cattle ranchers and all that, and basically, all the people around there is just all cattle ranchers. There's not one, and of course, then they say like, kick the horses, get them all away from here. And it's like, okay,
yeah,
but there's no middle ground. Like, I know your
yeah.
interests. You need the space for the cattle, but then we need to we need to meet in the middle at least, right?
Yeah, and I know in the US, at least from what I do know of it, even the cattle industry is interesting because I think when we're talking about cattle, we're not talking about the small rancher. A lot of
No.
times, from what I've heard, these are huge ranches with
Yes.
tons of money and they
Yes.
get this land for incredibly low prices. So it's not just cows that and horses that we need to be considering, but it is the small ranchers. And is it how do those rights play out, and is it fair that these people who already have a lot of resources are receiving more government subsidization?
Yeah.
So yeah,
I
it's a pretty
know.
complicated issue
I
that
know. It's sometimes frustrating to see. Even I see on social media like all the efforts from like the people that want to protect the Mustangs, and so much effort, and then we can't move it, right? So much power from the other side, so much
yeah,
money involved that yeah, it's hard. I know.
yeah, it is tricky. So tell me a little bit more about your art and just I know, like, one thing that caught my attention, you'd done a reel that was which kind of one going around where it's like, all the voices in your head, and then you kind of
Yeah.
go into art and how that changes things, which I totally relate to that with horses, where
Yeah.
it's like so much stimulation coming in to your life from the outside world. And then it's like, I get out with horses and it's just all gone. It's like you enter a whole
Yes.
different world. So, yeah, tell me a little bit more about your art and what you're doing and how what that's done for you.
Yeah, so yeah, it's funny that you brought up that because it's exactly how it works in my head. I always, when people ask me about my art, I always tell them it's more like therapy to me.
Mm-hmm.
First and foremost is like my passion and therapeutic, because even as an artist trying to show your work and having to have social media and post consistently, and you gotta one post a day and all
Yeah.
that, it's like it's
Mm-hmm.
so overwhelming, and it
Right.
goes, at least with my personality, it goes so much against how I get creative as a person. Like
Right.
I need peace. I need to be in nature. I need to take walks alone. Like that's how my mind starts getting creative. It makes me think, makes me, like I don't have any outside noise going around. So when the main reason I started to draw, even in the pandemic, when I took it more seriously, it was the same thing. So much was going on around that, like just sitting down and drawing and focusing on one thing. Like I told you before, I'm living through my dream there, like just drawing the horse. It's very therapeutic. Like all the voices around just go away. Is when I have my mind the clearest, the
Yeah.
less stress. And then after you finish, and then I mean, if you actually ended up a good drawing, you're so proud of it, just so proud of the outcome. So it's a win-win for me. Like it's helped me a lot to manage stress, and even this situation also with the wild horses and the problems around them, and people trying to slaughter them or sell them for meat or anything. It's just drawing, because I draw sometimes too, like western scenes, and cowboys and cattle,
Mm-hmm.
roping
Yeah.
cattle and all that, and it's just going through that history as well. It's there, and you gotta know about it as well. So that's the main reason I use my art for, just therapeutic learning and learning new things, going through history. It's a whole process, like reading a book, but just more visual for me, right?
Yeah. I love that you're sharing it because I think so many of those values from that time period we're kind of losing in our society.
Yeah,
Just working hard and community and just a lot of the values that are associated with that. But I think a lot of that is what's making society so unhappy today
yeah,
is that we've kind of lost that
yeah,
connection.
exactly. Lost that connection, and even connection with nature too. We're now sitting most of our days in front of a computer working, and we're so distant from where we come from, basically. And
Yeah.
yeah, and you said it perfectly, like the values before, and the way of life. That's what attracts me when I draw some western scenes and cowboys and all that. That's the main reason I do it. It's kind of like the wish of going back to more simple times.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I love that. How has your experience been with sharing your work on social media and that?
yeah. I mean, I was surprised, because when I started doing it, it was more for me, and just
Yeah.
like I said, like therapy. And I started posting, and like maybe 2 weeks after, 3 weeks after, I get some friends reaching out. Hey, I want the original piece. Like, send it to me. Like, ship it. But
Yeah.
like, I'll send you a deposit right now. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, it's just the first one I drew. I was like, I don't care. Send it
Yeah.
to me.
You're like, I was just sitting
So
down sketching.
yeah. I was just like,
They're forcing
and
you into it.
yeah, and it's vulnerable too, because sometimes I think we all have this kind of like, you're not that good, or you're not good enough, or you know uh, how much time I have to do this, since I believe more that this is a great work. I mean, I've been drawing all my life, right? So
Hmm.
people asking for it, and I want it. I'm like, okay, like like it's all the voices in your head, even for most of us, like the way we talk to ourselves. I think we should be more kind when we
Yeah.
talk to ourselves
Yeah,
a
for
little
sure.
bit. So I was surprised, and that helped me. How well received my art was,
Yeah.
and so I was able to also open an Etsy shop, just to also test and see, how people reacted. And 99% of my sales are in Texas, and I sent some to
Really?
Europe too and stuff.
Yeah.
So a lot
Oh,
of
cool.
people like horses and love horses are receiving my art pretty well. So I mean, I've been doing this, let's say, professionally more for the past 4 years, 4 to 5 years. So far, been great. I'll keep going at it,
Yeah.
and learning, getting better. That's what I enjoy. It's like there's no destination. It's just enjoying the process and trying my best.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I
Yeah,
was interested to talk with you just because creating stuff, I don't know, the way I grew up, like all those jobs are like pipe dreams, like you can't really make it doing that and
yeah.
whatnot. And then, like, when some pretty hard stuff happened in my life, like, I remember this time, just like this poem coming into my mind. And after that, I
Oh,
started writing poetry. And it was such a healing way for me to like get my feelings
Yes.
out, and it's something like I think I won a poetry contest in kindergarten or something, when I
Whoa.
was 5. So it's not like something I'd pursued throughout my life,
But you
but it
had
was
it in you
something,
since a
yeah, that
young
just kind
age.
of came back and
Yeah.
was, yeah, just like really helpful in healing and expressing emotions and kind of,
Yeah.
getting some of that ugly stuff out there that you don't tell people about because it's
Yeah.
uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love what being creative can do for us.
Oh,
And I think
100%.
it's kind of hard and scary to put yourself out there in
Yes.
that way in
Yes.
the
But
world.
it's
But
a healing process. I was so interested. Like I'm so glad you reached out because I love what you put, the videos that you put, and I didn't even know you had that poetry like since a young age. But that's so cool to know. Like it's you're putting a part of you in that too. So it's a healing process for me, to be honest.
yeah.
Not that I had anything super traumatic related to horses or anything, but it's the same as like that frustration that I had for years that I wasn't able to have what I was passionate about, like a horse or anything. So it's kind of like just going through it, like you said. And for me, I don't use words. I use some quotes sometimes on some of my
Yeah.
sketches that I
Mm-hmm.
post. That it's a new thing that I started doing too, because I was kind of like just doing graphically and going through that process, but also writing some stuff, like I told you, like how we talk to ourselves in our head.
Mm-hmm.
So it was more of like a kind of like a test to see if I do this more often. I'm having this practice of talking to myself even like in a nicer way and spreading kindness that
Yeah.
we just I think it's we all need more than in other times.
Yeah, I think that's been something that I've done also. Like a lot of the reels that I make usually are like messages that I needed to hear, and I'm kind of
Yes,
like, well,
yes,
that probably applies to other people. So I share it.
exactly.
But yeah, it is cool to share those things that come to us and kind of those reminders like, yeah, be kinder to yourself and talk, with encouragement and kindness. That's definitely something I didn't learn for whatever reason for a long time. I have a very good inner critic
Yeah.
personally.
Oh, believe me, yeah, I do too.
That's been really cool and something that horses have given me and I'm not even sure if I could say how, but just almost the confidence to like put stuff out there and be like, you know what? It doesn't matter necessarily if it's well received. It's always great when you put something out there and it gets lots of likes and you can see that other
Yes.
people resonate with it. But being able to even do that when, maybe you don't get any likes or maybe you don't even share it with people,
Yeah.
to just be able to have that confidence to create again and kind of
Exactly.
almost, I think, in a way, like returning a little bit to who we were as children, where we didn't kind of have that fear of criticism and scrutiny from the
Yeah.
outside world
Yeah.
quite as much.
Yeah, we didn't have so much feedback coming at us
Mm-hmm.
instantly after you post something, right? And
Mm,
now I feel like our priorities are skewed a little bit because of social media. Like we're
mm,
doing it for the likes instead of doing it for you. and
yeah,
and that's why there's so much now depression and like
yeah,
people with talking to themselves so bad because I feel like they're the priorities are wrong. Like we're
mm-hmm.
not that likes and all that comes second, but at
Yeah,
least do it for you. If it's a healing process, if it's just a therapeutic process, like it all begins with you, and if you're okay with it, then everything else comes after. Like if you get 5 likes instead of 500, who cares? Like
yeah.
you don't know who's seeing it on the other side too, and either benefiting from it or just nice to look at something that you posted. It's all good.
Yeah, I like that. It really is important to keep perspective when we participate in the social media
Yeah,
world.
it's
It
hard.
is really cool because it can connect you with other
Yeah.
people. That's how we got connected is we kind of
Yes.
crossed each other's accounts. So that's super cool, but it can be really hard. And one thing I found really interesting, I can put up a reel and it can do like incredible on one platform and on
Yeah.
another
Oh.
platform it gets like no
Yeah.
likes or whatever.
Yeah.
And when I first
It's
started, that would be like
frustrating.
kind of my judgment, like, okay, no, I'm way off base, no one can relate to
Yeah.
this. But as I've kind of gained that confidence, like, well, it doesn't matter, like it was something that hit me, a thought that hit me, or something I enjoyed or wanted to share. And, then we put that out there. And I like what you said, maybe it's just one person who you lift their day up a little bit. And
Yeah,
that's really cool if you're creating positive, good things to
exactly.
just think like, hey, you just made someone's life a little bit better for a moment.
Yeah, yeah, and even if you felt good just by posting it, regardless if you had likes or not, and you're good with it, then it helped you as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, and same with me. It's I post something on Instagram and then I post something on TikTok, and I just get so different reactions to it. My
Yeah.
TikTok is growing faster than my Instagram, and I post the same thing. It's weird. Yeah,
Yeah, it is interesting. I think we probably put a little too much credit in the computer systems to,
yeah,
a lot of times tell us our worth or value or, how good what we're producing is. So it's a good
yeah.
reminder that, yeah, don't just trust numbers. Numbers are great. It obviously feels great if you have one that just a lot of people reaches a lot of people, but
Yeah, and
yeah.
also like very important. It's even related to art. That like when you post something and you don't get likes, don't think that your art was not good enough. Like
Yeah.
that's also another problem. Like your art is good enough regardless if it has likes or not. But that's one thing that a lot of creators, at least that I know, it's hard for them mentally because they can be so happy with a picture that they had or drawing or
Mm,
whatever, and then they post it, don't get the likes that they thought they would have. Also, like those assumptions that
yeah.
we have now are like overboard, and
Hmm.
they end up like saying I'm not good enough, my art is not good enough. So
Yeah.
it's a
It
tricky
is
tool.
interesting. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting. A lot of times, some of the things that I think like, or I like work the hardest on, like this is so
Yeah,
good, like
I
just
know.
totally fall flat when you put it out
Yeah,
there in the world. And then like
yeah,
something that's like, oh, I took two
I know.
seconds, so it can get frustrating. I know you've probably seen the ones where the art, they show some silly TikTok or whatever that has 9
Yes,
million views or something. And then
yes,
you have these artists working on things for just hours. And it's like, I
hours.
got
Yeah,
3 views.
sometimes months,
Yeah.
and then they posted nothing, and then the one I took 2 minutes is the most views I've had.
Yeah, but I do
It's
think it's a great perspective, just that the value doesn't necessarily come from
Yeah,
likes. It doesn't come
exactly.
from what that immediate feedback we might get. It might be something down the line. It might be a preparation. Like you say, it might just be, something that was for you or for close friends or for that one person. So I love that.
Yeah, yeah. Just at least if we are aware of that and we know,
Yeah.
it's a good step. Like you can handle social media better, at least.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think it's really important to, yeah, just be aware that it's not it's not a perfect system, that
Yeah,
everybody's not seeing it and then voting on it. You don't even know if it's getting picked up by the algorithm or whatnot. So
yeah.
it is interesting. So do you think you're ever gonna have a horse of your own? Is it something you want
Yeah,
to do?
like that's definitely for sure. Eventually, my dream would be to have some adopted Alberta Wildies because
Mm-hmm.
there's some like foals sometimes that like their mom, the mare, doesn't abandons them,
Oh, uh-huh.
and then they're rescued by this guy or other people that help him.
Is that the main way that the wildies find if they are in a home? Is that the main way that they
Yeah,
come about? They don't have like an
yeah.
adoptions like they do down in the States?
No, no. It's more of like if this guy was able to rescue some foals or maybe an injured one that they managed to bring in,
Mm-hmm.
then it's him and then there's another non-profit. I don't remember their name, but there's just two that do the same thing basically, and that's
Mm-hmm.
how like if you're able to adopt a wildie would be through that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that would be
so
really neat.
my dream would be that like having maybe a bigger space. I have if I can adopt one or two, and
Mm-hmm.
you take photographs of them, and that would be my dream. I don't need to necessarily have a horse and ride him all the time. Obviously, I would train the wild horse and the Alberta Wildie, but yeah, just even admiring it, that would be enough for me.
Yeah. I've heard
Yeah.
a couple people talk about just kind of going out and observing their horses and just the things that you can learn and gain from that. And I tend to be like, all right, going out there and we're going to get something done or have a specific thing in mind. But I think there's some really neat things that can come into our lives if we slow down a little bit and take that
Yes,
time to just step back and observe
exactly.
and enjoy their presence and that time that we have with them.
Yeah, I love to observe. Like that's what I do the most. Even for drawings, I'm just
Yeah.
standing still and just looking, like just slowing down, like you say, and then just sometimes you miss so much by either so many things that you're thinking. It helps you slow down your thoughts and then just be focused. And again, like therapy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is really neat. That's definitely something I'd like to do more because I think that's probably what makes you a good artist is that you do kind of slow down and you observe
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
those small things. Yeah, because it's something I'm not good at. It's on my list of goals for life to keep
To
slowing
slow
down.
down a little bit more. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it gets hard
It's
in our
hard.
world.
I know. I know. Yeah. The more I think about it, I do, because I love reading too, and even I have a small pond outside in my backyard with some
Oh,
koi fish,
nice.
and
Hmm.
I like the koi just because I look at them, and it's just so peaceful for me. So it's yeah, that's how I'm wired. I like to just observe and register that in my brain, and somehow that sometimes it translates into art, a drawing or something, and sometimes it doesn't. But at
Yeah.
least my mind is a little bit more slowed down and
Yeah.
peaceful.
No, and it is really beautiful. It's hard to do that because life is just very busy. We have a phone in our hands all the time
Yeah.
where we can, scroll for hours if that's, where we spend our time. But the other day I was taking my mare out and I thought, I always have like, I want to get to this point in the trail or something like that. I always have those goals. But I was like, today I'm just going to get on her and I'm just going to let her do whatever she wants to do, which of course she just wanted to like graze most of the time.
Yes. Yes.
But I was just kind of hanging out and watching everything and just slowing down. And even just that, not necessarily having something to get done, but
An
just
agenda.
being out
Yeah.
there with the horse, you do see so much more of the world and so much more depth and detail than that normally we just walk on by, pass by, don't even give it a second thought.
I know, and I feel like that's why it's even so therapeutic to be with horses. Just even by listening to their breathing and their heart, it's such an amazing connection that we have as humans with horses. I feel like it's one of the few animals, the only one that have such a strong bond with humans.
Yeah.
Obviously dogs, but like horses have helped humanity so much. Like if you think about it, like they've helped us win wars. They've helped us like work our land to raise crops, as transportation. Like we've been like so in like related and connected with the horse that
Mm.
no wonder like sometimes when we just ride a horse and we just hear its breathing, it's so calming, so therapeutic.
Yeah.
I find that's fascinating. It's
It
incredible.
is. It's really interesting to me that first of all they let us do anything,
Exactly.
because like you said with that wild stallion, it's a big animal.
Quite. Yeah.
They have more power than I have for sure. So it's so interesting to try and think about why they even allow us into their lives in a way. But when they do, I've experienced the same thing where it's almost like going back in time in a way, just to a
Yeah.
simpler time in part. And it's also, yeah, there's just for me, I don't know if this happens for everyone, but for me with horses, like my husband, I don't think he gets the same feeling. He's just like, come on, let's get somewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, it's almost like you can just breathe again in the world. It's like you
Yeah.
can kind of return to yourself and just calm everything, all the chaos that life brings.
Yeah.
They're
And
pretty
do you have
amazing.
an adopted Mustang, or how
Yeah,
many
so
horses do you have?
I have I have 5 horses at my house. One's a little
Wow.
miniature.
The
One is
dream.
an Arabian, that's my daughter's, and then I have
Ooh.
3 Mustangs. And yeah, they're pretty cool. The first one I got, she's definitely the horse I've connected with and just taught me so much. Yeah, she's the one I ride a lot and see a lot. And well, my kids still are from me now if they come out with
Yeah.
me. But yeah, just such a huge part of peace in my life, just being able to go out there when, life gets crazy or whatever.
Yeah.
They have an incredible ability to kind of bring some grounding peace, it seems like. But yeah, so if you're ever in Colorado, stop on
All
by
right.
and you can
Yes, I
ride
will
some
reach out for
Mustangs.
sure. Yes,
Yeah.
I would love to take pictures of your Mustangs too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are just beautiful animals, like you say. There's just something about them. Yeah. I don't know. I feel the same as you. I'm drawn to them. I don't know
Yeah.
why exactly. Like there are other beautiful animals, but horses just do something for me.
I know it's for me. It's like literally a magnetic attraction. Like here, we're driving towards the mountains or wherever. There's horses everywhere, either domestic or some wild horses. If we're trying to go find one, and it's the same reaction I have since the past 5 years, and it's still the same. I'm like, can you please stop the car? Like,
Yeah.
I need to take picture
I
of your
gotta get
horse
out and
right
take a
now. I
picture.
need to get out. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like it just they're beautiful animals. It's like for me, it's a symbol of freedom and resilience, but yet still they're so powerful but humble. They have the force to tear you down to pieces, but they
Yeah.
are so gentle, and there's such
Yeah.
a so we should learn more about horses and how they behave.
Yeah. And I love that term gentle for them because I had a podcast guest on. I think it was the first one actually, and he talked about how we don't have to gentle wild horses. That's a term that's used a lot in Mustang training. Like they are already gentle,
Yeah,
and that just really hit me. That yeah, they are such gentle creatures. I think that's probably part of what it has such an incredible draw to them because they are these magnificent animals that I've been bit before. That can hurt.
oh
I've been
yeah,
kicked.
oh
They
my
could
god,
do a lot of
yes,
damage if they wanted to, but they are just by nature very gentle until they're threatened or don't feel safe, and that's a
yeah.
lot of times when things go south.
Exactly. Yeah, you can tell how they've been treated, or you can tell how the owner was just by the demeanor of the horse.
Yeah.
Same as with dogs. Like those are, I feel like, the two most social animals related with humans.
Mhm.
That yeah, it says a lot when you go see a horse and it's an aggressive one, and most likely it's not his or her problem, or it's
Yeah.
who managed that horse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely think that you should have a horse in your life at some time.
Yes, yes,
I think you would
that's
be an excellent guardian for him. That's the new word I love using for it.
yeah. Well, one of like the goals that I have, hopefully in the near future, is I would really love to learn how to train wild horses. Like if
Yeah.
there's an adopted Mustang or a here in Alberta Wildie, I would love to know how to train them. That would
Yeah.
be awesome for me. It's just is that you're building that connection with a horse at that moment. You're building trust, and that's for me one of the most fascinating things with
Yeah.
humans and horses. Like when you actually connect with the horse and the horse trusts you. For
Hmm.
me, it's something unbelievable, like
Yeah, I
amazing.
think you should definitely do that. I think you would
Yeah,
absolutely love it, but I also think you would be super good at it too because you kind of have those observation skills to really see what they're feeling and how they're
yeah,
reacting to different stimulus that come in. So I hope you
yeah.
get to do
Well,
that,
I
and when you
love
do,
that. I hope so.
I
Yeah,
want to see it. So make sure that you're putting it out.
yeah. Thanks for the encouragement.
Yeah, definitely do that. Any encouragement you need. So, where can people find you? Do you have I know I've seen your drawings. That's the first thing. Do you also have a lot of your photography out there that people are able to?
Yeah. So my main, I am on Instagram. So it's Francisco Lisci, Lisci, one last name, altogether. So that's my main account. I started since years ago. I posted photography and art there, but now I just created one that is just going to be my art and photography, because the other one is since I opened the account.
Mm-hmm.
So the other one is franciscolisi.art for Instagram. I started a TikTok, same Francisco Lisci, and you can see there my drawings and paintings and photography. So
Okay. Yeah, I've
yeah.
seen a few of your watercolors. They're really good too.
Yeah, I did a lot of charcoal drawings and watercolors, and
Mm-hmm.
now I'm expanding a little bit more into acrylic and oils
Oh,
eventually.
cool. I
But
don't
it
think I've
takes so
seen
much
those.
time. No, I'm
Yeah.
working on some, so you'll see some in the near future. But it's just takes time. When I grew up as a photographer and drawing mostly graphite, charcoal, and every now and then watercolor. But now with all this amazing nature that I have around and colors and everything, I was like, okay, I need to get, learning a little bit more acrylic and oil. That is
Yeah.
one of the best ones. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what comes next,
No, thank
what
you.
you put up next.
Yeah.
And then is your photography available to purchase also?
Yeah. I did have a website that I'm revamping again because I had also my photography when I did sports photography and commercial photography, and now I just want to dedicate it only for horse photography and my art. So
Mm,
it'll be soon, and I'll let you know when it's up. But yeah,
yeah, for
it will
sure.
be prints for sale as photography and my art.
Yeah, that'll be neat. And so you're moving almost solely to just nature
Yeah,
horse
yeah,
art.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's cool.
Yeah, it's been like a slow transition. I've been a
Mm-hmm.
photographer for 17, 18 years,
Mm,
and mostly I did a lot of sports, extreme sports. I worked for Red Bull and Monster in Mexico City.
mm-hmm.
So a lot of like very fast-paced, intense
Yeah.
stuff. And
Yeah, those are kind of far different spectrums
yeah,
going from that
yeah,
to, a
crazy.
quiet horse.
I know. I was even when I was a kayaker, I was shooting my kayaker friends, and when we were doing competitions, I was a photographer. So that's how I started with sports, and but yeah, pretty intense. And then slowly, I've always been taking pictures of horses where I can, but has taken most of my time now. Like I just want to focus on the horses and my art. It's more peaceful for me. It even
Mm-hmm.
makes me more creative. So I enjoy it more. So like they say, just do what you love, and I've always been like that. So the thing
Yeah,
that I'm most passionate and I'm feeling more drawn to that at that moment, I'm just going for it.
that's cool. That's a good trait
Yeah,
to have. That's hard
yeah.
to
It's
it's hard to do
I
sometimes to
know,
not
I know.
talk yourself out of it. So,
Yeah, believe me, there's been conversations in my head all the time, but just the best way to get that fear away is just to actually do it. And saying that if it doesn't work, you learn something for sure along the way. And but at least I don't have that regret of like, what if I did,
yeah.
and I never did. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And so are you mostly self-taught in art or did you
yeah.
do training?
I've always been like a self-taught. Like I love to
Yeah.
read since a young age. So even photography, I didn't go to school for photography. And when I was studying industrial design, just because it was, when they say like, okay, if you're gonna dedicate to photography, have Plan B to
Yeah.
study something in
Yeah.
case. There's ways to go around it. If you want to go for your passions, you can have some stuff to have as Plan B or C or D.
Yeah.
So while I was studying industrial design, I was already working as a photographer, and I learned it by reading books and just shooting. Like obviously, my first pictures, I didn't even know what I was doing, and that's how you start. Like nobody starts being an expert. So as I told myself how to take pictures and drawing the same. I have my books that I bought when I was 10 years old, how to
Mm,
draw and sketch animals and how to draw and sketch horses, and from there I just kept on going. And yeah, it's a longer road. I Because if you take a class, for sure you it's like a shortcut. But
mm,
I just enjoy kind of like figuring out the puzzle in
yeah.
general. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what drives me. So I just go and okay, let's figure out. It's more frustrating, but then the reward at the end, it's better too. You
Yeah.
feel more accomplished.
And it seems like kind of going at it at your own. Sometimes you don't know the rules you're supposed to follow that they
Yeah,
put in place or whatever. So you kind
yeah,
of do whatever you want. And sometimes really cool stuff results because of that.
exactly. That's even the creative part of it. When you approach it in a completely different way, just because you don't even know how it
Mm-hmm.
was supposed to be,
Yeah.
and you can end up with great results. You're providing a completely different perspective about like it's not that it's bad, but someone that grew up as a cattle rancher and draws and is amazing, he's
Mm-hmm.
giving a perspective through his eyes and how he lived, which is going to be completely different from how I see it right now. I see
Yeah.
it as an outsider, so I see different things, and I
Yeah.
feel like we both can provide different viewpoints on that
Mm.
same subject.
So I have this idea I'm just going to throw out there, and then I'll have to send you some, but I think it'd be really cool to do like a poetry book with your art. So
Oh, definitely.
so I'll
Yes.
send some of my stuff your
Send
way, and
all
you
your
can see if
ideas.
you
I'm
see if
open
it's
for
something you're
that.
interested in. Because yeah,
Yes.
I just love your art. It's really cool. I think you really grab the essence of the horse and just that gentleness, like you were talking about.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
almost like with some of your art that I've looked at, you can just see into the horse, into their soul and their spirit, and really feel
Oh,
their
that's glad to
essence.
hear.
So I
That's the
really love
idea.
your art.
Thank you. And let me know if you like a picture of the one of the I have of horses, and I'll send it your way so you can
Oh,
paint a
I mean, I
pretty
definitely
your
want some.
face.
I've been stalking your shop a little bit. So yeah, I'll have to get one of these days. I just want to, thank you for coming on here and talking about horses. And I'm, grateful that it's one more voice out there just telling people how amazing and showing really through your art just how amazing horses are. And I know your art really captured my attention and just the beauty of horses and like the goodness and purity that they can bring into our lives.
Thank
I
you.
think it's amazing that you're out there doing that and putting all that out there. And I love it, and keep coming, because I'm always excited when I see a post come up from you to see what's the latest.
Thank you.
Thanks for being
Thank you for the
here.
kind words. No, I
Yeah.
appreciate it so much. I was so happy you reached out. So hopefully it's the first one, but not the last one. And love to stay connected.
Yeah, I would love that too. Thank you for joining us and learning about horses that heal and the humans who help them. We hope you'll continue with us on this journey. We'd love for you to subscribe on your favorite platform and follow The Touch of a Mustang on any of the major social media outlets. Please share with your friends, anyone who loves horses, or anyone who might be struggling and could benefit from this message. If you have felt the healing power of horses or help them in their divinely appointed mission, please reach out. We want to hear your story. As we say goodbye, always remember that the horse is always there to help you heal.